Those are all of the things that kind of supersede the gut health. Like we say, gut health is, I think, naturopathically, interventionally, the first part you can give something to help improve. But the free stuff is just all the other things, like your sleep cycles, your stress management, your relationships, your purpose, all those other things sort of supersede that too, because
some of these peptides that you've got in this formula are just really nice across the board. They're not, like you said, they're not a forever thing. If it's a forever thing, you've got other problems to deal with, right? And we have to say the obvious, which I always preach, is you got to do the foundational work. You got to do the strength training and the sun and the walking and the stress mitigation and eating a nutritionally dense diet and all the things, right? Like those peptides don't work if you're not addressing all of those things as well.
Yep, 100%. And as you mentioned, mold in your environment, I had infinite supply. I'm the owner of the brand. I had infinite supply of all the gut healing stuff. And naturopath, I had my access to as much of everything that I wanted. And none of it made a difference when I had high levels of mycotoxin in my circulation. My gut was still distending. I still had leaky gut. I still had brain fog. My testosterone crashed, histamine issues, liver enzymes elevated, homocysteine, all of the things that no matter how perfect my diet was, no matter how much I forced exercise because it was going to help, it didn't matter until I got out of that environment. And for people, it might be mold. For other people, it might be you're living too close to some industrial waste plant or something like that, or you might be toxic relationship, one that's constantly keeping your cortisol elevated, too close to cell phone towers and huge EMF environments. There's plenty of that in the world at the moment. So those are all of the things that kind of supersede the gut health. Like we say, gut health is, I think, naturopathically, interventionally, the first part that you can give something to help improve. But the free stuff is just all the other things, like your sleep cycles, your stress management, your relationships, your purpose, all those other things sort of supersede that too. Because if you're, as you know from 2021, your gut health was ruined because of the stress that you're under with scrutiny through COVID. So yeah, like a good adrenal support's not something we offer, but supplementally, I think that can indirectly help your gut health and your thyroid health and all of the other systems of the body too.
1,000%. When I teach hormones, I have a course called GLP-1 done right University, and I have a whole beefy hormone module in there. And I teach the foundations. And step number one is support the adrenal system, period, because everything else won't work. If you don't, you'll bonk. But you can't just crank adrenals all day, right? Like I used to live off desiccated adrenal gland and all the adaptogenic herbs, and like that only gets you so far as well. So again, peptides. I wish I'd had peptides when I started all of this decades ago. It would have been much easier to get people further faster. That takes us to neuro. You've got a really incredible neuro formula that I also love. Let's talk about that one.
Sure. So neuro, I developed for two reasons. One, because living in mold gave me horrible brain fog. And pretty much all the ingredients, the naturopathic ones at least, that I used while there were my life jackets to make sure my brain actually worked when I had to work and when I had to do podcasts while I still had ridiculously high levels of mycotoxin in my body. Kind of just like caffeinate yourself and push through, take a little methylene blue and you can make it work.
Well, I know that well.
Yeah. But also the other reason is my opa, being Dutch, my granddad, he died of dementia. So it's pretty near and dear to my heart. That condition, seeing how horrible it was and how he just wasted away and lost himself. My father started to develop memory issues and repeating himself. And I'm like, oh, I need to do something about this as quickly as possible. I'm going to support his brain health. I'm not going to target dementia. But like when you look at all of the things that go into it, they call dementia type 3 diabetes. So like you're going to look at metabolic syndrome, you're going to support mitochondria and glucose disposal, healthy insulin levels. So cleaning up his diet and using things like berberine or dihydroberberine, supporting using anti-inflammatories that can actually get in your brain. Like PEA is an amazing anti-inflammatory that has an affinity for fatty tissues, i.e. your heart. So it helps people with heart inflammation, which may or may not be pretty prevalent from things that have come out in the past, and neuroinflammation, which is a big problem at the moment because when gut health is compromised like it is in so many people, you don't just have a gut barrier, you have a blood-brain barrier too, which is equally susceptible to zonulin, which is one of the primary drivers of hyperpermeability. that can cause permeability of the brain. And then all of the toxins that are getting through your permeable gut, like lipopolysaccharides, endotoxins, can then go into your brain and cause deep neuroinflammation. And that's what I dealt with. And I know that's what Dave Asprey dealt with, and what basically sparked his whole journey into biohacking and to bulletproof, bringing his brain back from, I think he's claimed that on a brain scan, it showed severe brain damage, and he had like an 8-year-old's brain from mold. Well, probably not as bad as Dave, but I still had that happening. I had mold colonized my sinuses. So between in the sinus cavity, pretty much trickling directly into my brain, I had mold toxin going in there until I managed to clear it out with sinus flushes and grapefruit seed extracts and all the other things that you can do, even a little bit of NAC in a sinus cleanse, which I recommend you do very cautiously because it burns. But
yes, I've nebulized that. It's painful.
Yes, exactly right. But yeah, neuro was my attempt to bring my brain back, restore any potential brain damage which probably occurred from being in 3 years of mold, and then to help my dad out. And again, using the naturopathics, lion's mane, BDNF booster, go to cola, ginkgo, bacopa, all blood flow enhancers, help get oxygen and nutrient delivery to the brain and waste removal. Use a bit of dihydroberberine to stabilize the blood sugar. And what I love doing, my biggest passion is finding ingredients that work better than what the mainstream are aware of. Like NAC has gained a lot of popularity for good reason. It's the precursor to glutathione. But there are other forms of NACs. There's also forms that are sort of downstream of NAC converting through to glutathione. You can use NACET, which is an ethyl ester form of NAC that has substantially better bioavailability, and it's also capable of crossing the blood-brain barrier to include increasing glutathione levels in the brain. It's often called NeuroNAC. The other one you can use is GGC, which is on the 3 steps of conversion through to glutathione, the middle step, NAC being the first, GGC is the second, and then it just converts directly through to glutathione. I like the precursors more than I do glutathione, unless it's like a really good quality liposomal one, which can have some effects. But I find the precursors better at increasing glutathione levels than taking it. So yeah, including NACET in the neuro formula was pretty important, and pterostilbene, 2 really good antioxidants, anti-inflammatories for your brain to help with that neuroinflammatory cascade that I believe is probably one of the few causative reasons why neurodegeneration occurs. And then sort of rectifying it with the peptides. Again, we come back to combine the naturopathics with the powerful, modern, scientific, cutting-edge peptides like dihexa, like P21 and Cmax. All of these peptides have been shown in animal studies, granted, hopefully the human studies come, to increase BDNF, increase NGF, nerve growth factor. These peptides work on so many different growth factor cascades that all ultimately result in improved brain function. And that's why I love this product. But one thing that I need to caveat is when you boost BDNF, some people, especially when they like lion's mane, people might say this, for example, they get a little bit brain foggy from it, because when you boost BDNF, it actually is quite a metabolically taxing process to grow new neurons or to remyelinate or to undergo neuroplasticity. So you do end up with a little bit of inflammation from that. So by using the things like the NACET, the pterostilbenes, the ginkgos and bacopa, you're sort of quenching that inflammation that can occur when you really push BDNF. But my personal anecdotal experience having used it is every time I'm on it, it's like increased mental focus, increased verbal fluency, and also skill acquisition. That's a big thing that BDNF is beneficial for. When you're young, your BDNF levels are much higher than when you're older. I think before you're 7, it's ridiculously high. That's why kids just pick up everything straight away, and like learning a new language is so much easier when you're younger than 7 than it is when you're older. But since taking it, I've managed to, and this is like a chicken or an egg thing. Did I start to do these things because I knew when I took dihexa and P21 that I needed to probably get the benefits by learning a skill? But I've managed to pick up piano, not great, but I'm starting to learn that, and it's finding it pretty easy. I've managed to learn how to serve a tennis ball, and I'm getting significantly better at basketball. Just like, obviously, if you practice things, you get better, but I'm finding comparative to when I did all those things before, it's much easier for me now because of that BDNF boost. And from my understanding, you do need to actively work on skill acquisition when you're boosting it too. So that's what I've been doing and liking.
I love that. That's great, especially as we age. I mean, we get BDNF from exercise and from just good, clean living, but it definitely starts to wane. And then people also, I was talking to you off air about the brain fog that I was having just as hitting middle age and my zone of genius. I have always had some form of ADHD, and I love it. Like, it has allowed me to be a very successful human because if I didn't eat well and I didn't exercise, I'd be a complete hot mess. It would not be good. But I think when you're really honed in, it's a really miraculous tool. It's a superpower. However, as your estrogen wanes and you age and your BDNF is falling off, along with your human growth hormone levels, et cetera, it really starts to show itself. And so having a neuro formula is incredibly helpful. You did mention something that I think is worth noting and that I always warn folks against when they are embarking on using any kind of neurologic stimulation, anything that like stimulates the brain. If you have really compromised health, or you do have a lot of exposure to like latent infections or mold exposure, sparking the brain can be a little bit of a challenge. And so this goes back to the gut, right? I always say, like, address the gut first and get that systemic inflammation down in the body so that we can address the brain without having, because sometimes people get a little jumpy when you start bringing, you'll get like a paradoxical reaction that you didn't expect when you sometimes bring in neuro formulas. So I love the idea of I love that the foundations of all of these are naturopathic in nature. That it makes so much sense. This is why I didn't know this about you until a few days ago. This is why, because every formula you've sent me a few things and I'm like, this is genius. But this explains it. So truly.
I don't know about you, but my kind of order of operations for healing people is work on adrenals.
Yep.
Then gut, then liver and detoxification and elimination, then hormones, and then you can sort of do all the extras wherever else. Like if it's kidneys are still not functioning, then you can go after them. If it's neuro, brain fog, all that sort of, if that's not already resolved from working on those prior ones, then you can bring in things like neuro. And then the additional things are, I want to like slow my rate of aging. I want to use NMN. I want to boost mitochondrial function too. That kind of plays in wherever you kind of wanted to as an add-on on the side.
Peptides don't work if you're not addressing all of those things as well.
Yeah, 100%. And as you mentioned, mold in your environment, I had infinite supply. I'm the owner of the brand. I had infinite supply of all the gut healing stuff, and naturopath. I had my access to as much of everything that I wanted, and none of it made a difference when I had high levels of mycotoxins.